Anthony Borgia was a talented medium with a strong gift of clairaudience, meaning he could hear words from people in the afterlife. And he had a gift for automatic writing, meaning he could let his hand go limp and they would write through his hand. Borgia would sit with a pencil in his hand and feel the weight of a warm spirit's hand on his own, guiding the pencil across the paper as though he were taking dictation. The man writing through his hand was a man living in the afterlife named Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson. Benson told Borgia he wanted to communicate the truth about the afterlife because he had been such a skeptic and unbeliever while on earth that he told people things in error about the life after this life. In this series of videos, I present Benson's words spoken from the afterlife, describing life in the afterlife. Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson was so ecstatic about his new life in the afterlife that he committed himself to telling us, still living on earth, what life in the afterlife is like. Benson asked Borgia to write what he told him in dictation to bring the truth about the afterlife to the earth. He hoped that by putting into print the facts about life after death, he would help banish the fear of death so widespread among people today. You will hear narrations of Benson's own words conveyed through medium Anthony Borgia about life in the afterlife.
What touched me most strongly was the totally wrong attitude that religions on earth had about the world of spirit. The very fact that I was lying there alive was a complete refutation of so much that I had been taught and assumed to be true during my priestly life upon earth. I could imagine volumes of orthodox teachings, creeds, and doctrines melting away because they are of no account, because they are not true, and because they have no application whatever to the eternal world of spirit and to the great creator and upholder of it. I could see clearly now what I had seen but hazily before, that religious doctrines are man-made, but that the universe is God-given. My friend went on to tell me that the people living in the homes we could see from where we were lying were of all conditions. Their religious views when they were on the earth were equally varied. But one of the great facts of spirit life is that souls are exactly the same the instant after passing into spirit life as they were the instant before. Deathbed repentances are of no avail, since the majority of them are but cowardice born of fear of what is about to happen. Their fear was of the eternal hell created by religion, which is such a useful weapon in keeping parishioners in line. The idea of hell has caused more suffering in its time than many other erroneous doctrines. Religions and religious beliefs form no part of the afterlife, but because people take all their earthly characteristics into the spirit world, the fervent adherents to any religion continue to practice their religions in the spirit world until such time as their minds become spiritually enlightened. My friend said we have here whole communities still exercising their old earthly religion. The bigotry and prejudices are all there, religiously speaking. They do no harm except to themselves, since such matters are confined to themselves. There is no such thing as making converts here. Such being the case, then, I thought to myself that our own Roman Catholic religion must be fully represented here. Indeed it was. The same ceremonies, the same ritual, the same old beliefs, all are being carried on with the same misplaced zeal in churches erected for the purpose. The members of these communities know they have passed on, and they think that part of their heavenly reward is to continue their man-made forms of worship. So they continue until a spiritual awakening occurs. Pressure is never brought to bear upon these souls. Their mental resurrection must come from within themselves. When it does come, they will taste for the first time the real meaning of freedom. My friend promised that if I wished, we could visit some of these religious bodies later, but he suggested that since there was plenty of time, it would be better now if I became quite accustomed to the new life. Religious contentions and controversies are at the bottom of all the ignorance and lack of knowledge that so many people bring with them into the spirit world. And if the minds of people are stubborn, and they are unable really to think for themselves, then do they remain shackled to their narrow religious views, thinking it to be all the truth, until a day of spiritual awaken dawns for them. Then they will see that their slavish adherence to their creeds is holding them back. It is to be so much lamented for everyone who leaves forever these misguided congregations. Another will come to fill his place, until the time comes when the whole earth knows the truth of the world of spirit. Of course, they do no harm as they are here, beyond retarding their spiritual progression. Once they realize what they are doing themselves and take the first step forward, their joy knows no bounds. They will realize the time they have apparently wasted. Now it may be asked if, with the acquisition of knowledge and truth, these extensions of earthly religions into the spirit world are better done away with, what will you put in their place? It sounds like a condemnation of communal worship. By no means. We have our communal worship here, but it is purged of every trace of meaningless creeds, of doctrines and dogmas. We worship the great and eternal Father in truth, absolute truth. We are of one mind and one mind only. And no one is called upon to believe blindly or to profess to do so, something which is utterly incomprehensible to any mind. There are many, many things here which we do not understand, and it will take eons of time before we even have a faint gleam of understanding them. But we are not asked to understand them, we are asked to take them as they are. It makes no difference whatever to our soul's progression. We shall be able to progress far and far beyond that before we shall ever need to think about understanding such things. And so we have one mind in our worship of the All-Highest.
Anthony Borgia's books are the most complete, fascinating accounts of life in the afterlife provided by a resident of that world. They're further proof you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die. One of the most common questions we're asked is, how is my loved one who has passed into the next life? Your loved one is fine, in fact joyous. They're enjoying their life in conditions more wonderful and beautiful than they could have imagined. I explained what we know about the life your loved one is living in the afterlife. Everyone who speaks from the next life describes their happiness at being without worries, healthy, feeling light as a feather, with a young body that has no aches and pains. Your loved one is delighted. They do miss being with you in the old familiar body and doing the things you did together. However, they know you're fine and they can look in on you at any time. They know you'll soon enough have a reunion with them. All who transition to the next realm describe having a body, just as they had when they were on earth. They have no aches and pains, however, and they feel healthy and light. They look as they did in their 20s or 30s if they transitioned at an older age. If they transitioned as children, they grow up on the other side of life to have bodies that correspond to bodies in their 20s or 30s on earth. There are no diseases, deformities, or mental difficulties. They have a body that is whole, healthy, vibrant, and young. There are no old people, and there are no old people ailments. If your loved one had mental conditions that kept their development at a childlike level during their life on earth, they entered the life after this life at the mental age they were on earth as a child. They're now growing from there to normal adulthood because the physical restrictions are gone. If your loved one had a mental disorder, such as bipolar disorder, depression, or schizophrenia, the physical conditions that created the disorder are gone, so they no longer display the unfortunate symptoms. If your loved one took their own life, they're met with love and compassion. They were not judged or condemned for the action. They almost always regret their decision, unless it was because of a deteriorating body condition. They can see the anguish of loved ones left behind and then are sorry for causing the pain. No one speaking through mediums from the next life describes a hell or a place of torment. The concept of hell is a myth invented by religions. There is no judgment. There are no repercussions for actions on earth. Your loved one is busy learning and working. They have occupations and preoccupations, often what they wish they could have done on earth realm, but couldn't. They haven't forgotten you. But just as most of us leave our family members to go to work each day, those who are in the life after this life are busy. They aren't preoccupied with staying around you unless you're grieving deeply. They return to be with you when you think of them. They don't observe birthdays and anniversaries because there is no time as we know it in the life after this life. Even so, when they know your family is getting together, they will often stand unseen with you. They attend celebrations such as weddings, birthday gatherings, and their own funerals. Your thoughts come to them in the life after this life, and they respond by coming to be with you on special occasions, either by coming into the Earth School environment or being with you mind to mind from wherever they are. If your loved one was an infant or a child, that little one is happy and being cared for and playing in a special area with other children and teachers. You will be reunited when you transition to the next realm of your life. Your child's physical and intellectual advancement is much faster and richer than it was in Earth School. When your child reaches a suitable age, they will choose their vocation and focus their studies on becoming proficient in its practices. The pets you love are alive and well in the life after this life. Your pets are being kept by family members until you transition to the next life, at which time your pets will return to you without question. No one reincarnates and becomes unavailable. Reincarnation is misunderstood. We stay the individual we are through the remainder of our eternal lives. Your loved one is available to communicate with you now, and they will have a reunion with you when you arrive there. They will not reincarnate and be unavailable. Your loved one has the same personality, loves, fears, intolerances, sentiments, humor, and all the rest of what makes them an individual, just as they had on Earth. They actually remember more details of their time on Earth School. They still have a range of emotions: joy, excitement, frustration, sadness, and all the other emotions. They might come to you crying over something, or frustrated, or even angry over a situation, but the negative emotions will be from situations, not individuals. Their approach to you is full of love and concern. They've grown out of much of the pettiness that they may have felt while in a body. The transition from the Earth realm is a life-changing event. It results in changed sentiments over time. Your loved ones are living with people they love, whom they've chosen to live with. They are not required to live with someone they don't want to live with. They never even have to see them. If your loved one had another spouse, they will choose to live with either, both, or neither of you. It is a free will choice, just as choice of whom to live with on Earth is made freely here. They always encourage their loved ones still on Earth to go on and to have a full, happy life, including having new relationships. Your loved one likely lives in a realm called Summerland. The environment is pleasant, with surroundings reminiscent of the environment on Earth, but only more beautiful than the residents are able to describe. They're living in a house with a yard, flowers, trees, and all the older familiar surroundings we have on Earth. Their house is elegant and clean, with a garden if they want one. If they enjoyed gardening on Earth or wish they had been able to garden, they will be tending the gardens. Beautiful flowers grow continually and profusely. No one picks the flowers, however. They are left to grow naturally. Your loved one may attend plays, concerts, sporting events, or other entertainment, sitting in rows of seats with others just as on Earth. They also have family gatherings where they meet with great joy and affection. If they love sports or other recreation activities, they will gather with others to enjoy playing sports or being part of the social activities. Your loved one's desires and expectations are the same immediately after the transition as before. They may eat, sleep, drink, smoke, and all the other things they did when in the Earth realm. If they expect food, sleep, drinks, and smoking, they will be available. However, drinking a beverage with all the properties of wine or stronger drinks does not intoxicate, and smoking does not affect the body or the environment. If your loved one enjoyed recreational devices such as boats and motorcycles, they are available. They're not powered by machinery. The boats sail effortlessly, and the motorcycles travel with ease because of the intention of the person controlling the effort to have the boat or motorcycle propel itself forward. If they're new to the next stage of life, they may prefer to wear the clothes they wore in Earth School, so those clothes are available without their requesting them. They eventually will likely wear a robe, or rather than street clothes. For a job, your loved one is occupied with what is of greatest interest to them. All occupations known to people on Earth are in the life after this life, except police, soldiers, prison guards, morticians, physicians, and other such occupations that fit only the Earth environment. They might continue their profession from the Earth, becoming even more talented and capable. They're not paid. They perform their services out of love and joy. Your loved one's work is their recreation. If your loved one had an alternative sexual orientation, their preference is freely accepted by others. They may carry on with attitudes and interests they had on Earth. No one is assigned to a gender or sexual orientation. They have the orientations they want to have that they brought with them from Earth. They may change them at any time. Their bodies reflect their views of themselves. Your loved ones are in a wonderful situation. They enjoy being there. They miss you and would like to communicate with you. All you have to do is receive their messages and communicate to them at any time. As I was saying goodbye in my self-guided afterlife communication, I asked for a hug, and I felt an energetic pulse that straightened my posture from head to toe. It happened relatively slowly, but it felt automatic, like something is moving me. Have you heard this happen to others? Yes, and you'll be very pleased to learn what happened to you. The feelings of an energetic force surrounding you that you're describing are very common. People feel the energy of hugs and kisses. They're not tactile, but clearly are what a person feels after the tactile sensations. In other words, when we're using a body, we have the experience of touch. After the sensation of touch, we have mind experiences such as happiness, feelings of energy, tingles, and other effects. When we're receiving them from our loved ones in spirit, we may have a physical experience such as cold or warm or tingles. They are the counterpart of the touch. Then we may have feelings of happiness and knowledge we're being hugged or kissed. The after effects are the same. We don't notice the after effects so much when we're hugging or kissing someone who is using a body on Earth. We get the sense of touch strongly, so the subtle feelings after the touch are less apparent. When we're having the experience with someone not using a body now, we register the experience in the mind that would happen after the physical experience of being touched. It's important to realize that all senses are experiences in the mind. The body feels nothing. It is insensate. Experiences happen only in the mind. So we feel a touch, but it is only the experience of a touch in the mind. We see an object, but we are only seeing the object in the mind. As a result, when we're communicating with a loved one nearby who is not using a body, we get the mind sensations of seeing, hearing, touching, and so on. They're real experiences that are the same as the experiences we have after a physical sensation when using a body. We just skip the body part. There are many examples in afterlife communication accounts. In one induced after-death communication experience, the client, sitting with his eyes closed, was having a conversation with his brother in spirit. Suddenly he opened his eyes and told the psychotherapist he had a startling sense of having a claw around him. The psychotherapist had him go back into the scene and ask his brother what that was. His brother responded that he was giving him a hug. Do we have bodies in the afterlife? Most people today have the wrong conception about what happens when we go on to the life after this life. That's especially true of whether we have bodies. Mistaken ideas come mostly from religions. Their beliefs are not based on communication with people living in the next life. Today, we have abundant communication from people living in the afterlife. They have cleared up the misconceptions, so now we know without a doubt that we have real bodies just as we have on earth. It would help if you realize that the earth is a spiritual plane, just as the afterlife is. The rules and things we experience change, but people who wake up on the other side all say they're surprised that the afterlife is just like this life. There, people have bodies, walk on streets, garden, build things, and otherwise do much the same things as we do on earth. They have just changed focus from the earth to the next life, like changing the channel on a television. They tell us the notions that we change to be lights of being without bodies, or that we'll be sitting on clouds strumming harps, are simply not true. I've heard one person communicating for the afterlife say he doesn't know if he has internal organs. But it doesn't matter. There's no need for internal organs. There is no surgery. There are no old people diseases that would require surgery. No organs fail. What stays the same is who we are. Our personalities, memories, likes, dislikes, attitudes, and all the rest of what makes us the person we are. We just change from one plane to another, and we trade in our bodies for new bodies. The bodies we will have if we pass from this life as adults are the bodies we had in our prime on earth, in our 20s or 30s. Children who pass away grow up in the next plane of life until they have bodies in their 20s or 30s. Our bodies are perfect and healthy. People in the afterlife can eat or drink if they want, although they don't need to. The body doesn't need nourishment. Some people describe having sensual pleasures, such as having sex or smoking a pipe. I want to reassure you that you will have a solid body in the next life, just as you have in this life, and you will have all the abilities and pleasures of a body. You'll have a wonderful time in your new body and your new surroundings. When you come to the end of this life, you will drift into your next life painlessly, even if you were in terrible pain just before making the transition. So how do we know the transition to the next life is always painless? This video explains how we know. I want to reassure you that no matter how much pain you were in before you made the transition from your body to the next life, your pain will cease when you make the transition. No one feels pain when the body dies. Here's why we know that's true. All speakers from the life after this life say there was no pain during the death of their bodies. People who transition because of illness have no experience of the body's pain at the end, even though the people gathered around the deathbed see struggles or signs of pain. When the person is not conscious and not able to communicate, they are away from the body already. People who transition because of a horrendous accident are spared the pain of the trauma that results in their transition, although they may experience the fear and trauma leading up to the accident. But they describe being taken out of the body just before the actual trauma. Here's an example. A man named Mike Swain, communicating from the afterlife through a trance medium, explained that he was spared the pain of a fatal automobile accident and actually observed the event from outside of it. Mike died in an auto accident. He spoke to his father, Jasper Swain, a South African lawyer, through a medium. He said that before the accident, he had been driving with his fiance's sister, Heather. He described being blinded by the glare of the sun reflecting off of the windshield of an oncoming truck. All of a sudden, the glare of the sun was replaced by a brilliant gold light. He felt himself being lifted up in the air, out through the top of the car. He grabbed little Heather's hand. She too was being lifted up out of the car. When they were about 30 feet above the car, they watched the collision below them and heard a noise like the snapping of steel banjo strings. They had suffered no pain. The snapping he heard was the cords attaching him to the body that were releasing painlessly. He didn't experience what his body experienced. Talented medium Suzanne Giesman tells of receiving messages from the soul of a man named Jim, who was currently in hospice, dying of cancer. He explained that although his body was in hospice, apparently struggling and in pain, his soul was already at peace. He said to Suzanne, "The body may appear to be suffering, but my soul is fine." When the transition is inevitable and the person seems not to be present, the soul has gone on and is being spared the pain. In another account of someone passing from a horrendous accident, a girl in the afterlife said she felt no pain during her transition. Dr. Laurel Parnell is a well-known psychotherapist and author about the psychological procedure called EMDR that can result in afterlife communications. During a counseling session, a client described a terrible airplane accident that she was in. On the plane were the members of a girls' ball team that she was part of. All on board were killed except her. During her psychotherapy session, she had an afterlife connection with all the girls. One of the girls, now in spirit, said they all experienced the frightening experience of the plane diving downward, but they were taken out of the plane before it crashed. None felt any pain. We have no accounts from people living in the next life of suffering pain during the traumatic transition. The person about to experience a trauma to the body is gone into the next life before the body dies. No one need fear the transition when the body ceases to function. It is a quick and painless transition into a wonderful life. The planning of our life experiences happen before our bodies are even conceived. The planning is a collaborative effort among our soul, guides, helpers, and other entities in the greater reality. These beings make up our planning team and are responsible for facilitating our learning of important lessons. The composition of this team may change over time as new members are added to assist with specific tasks. In this video, I explain how our lives are planned and how the plan can be disrupted by our free will. Lives are planned with a basic framework. That doesn't mean we're predestined to act as we do. We have free will within that framework, and things happen that are not part of the planning. They're just part of living on Earth. But the makeup of our families, capabilities, general progress of our lives, and exit points are all planned before our bodies are even conceived. It's as though we were given all the parts of a bicycle, all the tools to put them together, and the mental ability to build a bicycle. But whether we get all the parts in the right places is entirely up to us. And if we lose parts during our lifetime, our guides and others will inspire us to be able to make a working bicycle without the parts or with new, better parts. Our life's plan is full of necessary changes. The planning team includes our soul, other souls who will share in our life's experiences, guides, and others who are available to help when needed. Occasionally, higher level ascended masters may also be involved, but their participation is limited, as the planning process must be conducted at the level of the souls who enroll us in Earth School. The planning group chooses our families, friends, and colleagues, physical and mental capabilities and limitations, gender, neighborhoods and home environment, prosperity or lack of prosperity, schools, careers, and other conditions of life. Our souls then plan life events that will help us confront challenges and have learning experiences that will enable us to learn the lessons we have chosen to learn. Our souls are individuated parts of our higher selves that are devoted to our lives from planning through birth to the death of our bodies. Our minds are different from our souls. Our minds develop in Earth School. We start off with a tabula rasa, or blank slate. We grow in Earth School to acquire our personalities, memories, life experiences, skills, and the other components we associate with who we are. Our soul is a part of the higher self that has all knowledge of our pre-birth planning and helps us navigate through life. Stacey Wells, the medium working with Rob Schwartz, author of Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift, describes the planning as being done on boards, whose content has the appearance of flowcharts and cells. The planning group sits in a room talking about what this new incarnation is going to learn and how each member of the planning group can participate. They explore life event alternatives and the results that might come from choosing each alternative. They evaluate what might happen in the person's life if a life event occurs and how that will affect the learning and other events in the person's life. The learning experiences are planned with great care. The planning group plans events and circumstances with great challenges the person must deal with and overcome. The challenges are intended to help the person learn the lessons the soul and others want the person to learn. The greatest challenges were chosen because of the important lessons the person wanted to learn. The person may not be able to triumph over the challenges the first time they encounter them. The person's soul and guides may alter upcoming events during the person's life in Earth School to present the challenges again. However, as with everything in our eternal lives, we have free will. We may choose not to go through the struggle of overcoming the challenges. There is no judgment for not taking up the challenges and learning from them. The planning group is able to see the alternative plans the person may take during the Earth School experience. Because the person has free will and may choose a path not in the pre-birth planning, the planning includes contingencies for missteps and detours. Then during the person's life, the person's soul and guides are engaged in working with the person. So when detours occur, the person can be guided through influences and circumstances to choose an alternative path that will arrive at the desired learning experiences. The plans do not include horrendous actions, murder, or suicide. A person's disposition may be such that they could make very bad life choices, but murder and suicide are not in the life plan. Most people have a primary challenge that dominates their thoughts and plans. It was chosen during the pre-birth planning. The primary challenge may be learning compassion or humility, learning how to trust, learning how to be centered on other people or to be sensitive to other people. If a person's life seems to be dominated by challenges and growth in an area, that likely is the area of the primary challenge. The individual will feel guidance about the circumstances in which the primary challenge appears. Growth will happen each time the person faces the challenge. Because it is so profound, the area of the primary challenge is the area of life that may not be successfully addressed. However, even when the challenge does not result in the desired outcomes, the individual learns from the experiences. One of the foremost ways the planning group plans for events to teach the desired lessons is through opposites. The planning group may plan for the person to be in circumstances and experiences characterized by the opposite of what they want to learn, so they can experience that opposite condition and learn to value and appreciate the missing sentiment the soul and the higher self want to understand more fully. For example, a soul wants to understand humility. They may be born into a family that is arrogant because of its wealth and position. In that circumstance, the person can become offended by the family's treatment of employees and others, thereby learning the importance of being humble rather than being arrogant. That person may then choose to lead a humble life without wealth and position. A narrator reads this example from Rod Schwartz's Your Soul's Plan of planning a life with lessons that will be learned from opposite conditions.
For instance, a deeply compassionate soul who wishes to know herself as compassion may choose to incarnate into a highly dysfunctional family. As she is treated with a lack of compassion, she comes to appreciate compassion more deeply. It is the absence of something that best teaches its value and meaning. A lack of compassion in the outer world forces her to turn inward, where she remembers her own compassion. The contrast between the lack of compassion in the physical world and her inner compassion provides her with a more profound understanding of compassion and, therefore, herself. From the perspective of the soul, the pain inherent in this learning process is temporary and brief, but the resultant wisdom is literally eternal.
This framework for our lives does not limit our free will. We are able to choose any life activities and paths within the circumstances. As our lives progress, our souls, guides, and others inspire us and arrange for circumstances to help us learn and grow in wisdom, love, and compassion. They will work with the souls of other people to inspire them to be involved in our development as well. All of what happens, regardless of how sad and tragic, is a part of our life's plan, or is a spontaneous, unplanned occurrence that will be woven into our plan to become wise, loving, and compassionate. The obstacles and challenges are meant for us to grow. I absolutely want to experience eating, drinking, and sex in heaven. So what replaces those pleasures? The answer likely will surprise you. People don't realize the truth about what we can experience in the next life. When you first transition to the life after this life, you can have all the sensual experiences of earth, except those that harm yourself or others, such as hunting, drug addiction, violent actions against others, and so on. If you want to eat, drink alcohol, smoke, have sex, or have other sensual activities, those will be available to you for as long in the future as you want them. Your state of desire will make them available to you. You want them, so they'll be there. Eventually, you'll find you derive greater pleasure out of other activities you can't even envision now. Then those will be available to you. You're stuck with your Earth School mind right now, with its desires and expectations. That will change over time. You just can't imagine them now. You're stuck in the Earth School environment's desires, rather analogous to being stuck in infancy or adolescence in this life. Your life will go on, and your desires will change. With your Earth School perspective, the things that give you pleasure seem like all you want to experience forever. But just as an infant can't imagine the pleasures of being a child or an adolescent or an adult, and wants to keep the favorite rattle and the oral satisfaction of a baby bottle, you can't imagine or understand the pleasures you'll have as you leave the Earth's plane's limitations behind. But don't worry about it. You'll be satisfied beyond measure by the wonderful new sensual experiences you enjoy. Everything that you expect and want to have in the next life will be available for you. I'm often asked, what will we remember about this life when we enter the life after this life? Will we remember what we did on Earth? In this series of videos about life in the world we will all enter, I present statements by reliable sources about what life in heaven is like. Subscribe to this channel to receive notifications about this series of videos and others. In this video, I present descriptions of what people remember and what they learn in the afterlife. Hello. author of 8 books with the proof you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die. Anthony Borgia was a medium in the 20th century. He wrote several books with the communications he received from residents of the life after this life. His books are the most complete descriptions of life in the world we will all enter when we have completed our brief tenure on Earth. His communications came from a man named Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, whom Borgia came to know 5 years before his transition into the next life. In this excerpt from Borgia's book, Life in the World Unseen, Borgia recounts what his guide to the afterlife, Robert Hugh Benson, told him about what people remember and what they learn in the afterlife.
I have said that my mind was alert. That is an understatement. I discovered that my mind was a veritable storehouse of facts concerning my earthly life. Every act I had performed, and every word that I had uttered, every impression I had received, every fact that I had read about, and every incident I had witnessed, all these, I found, were indelibly registered in my subconscious mind. And that is common to every spirit person who has had an incarnate life. It must not be supposed that we are continually haunted, as it were, by a wild phantasmagoria of miscellaneous thoughts and impressions. That would be a veritable nightmare. Our minds are like a complete biography of our earthly life, wherein is set down every little detail concerning ourselves, arranged in an orderly fashion and omitting nothing. The book is closed normally, but it is ever there, ready to hand for us to turn to, and we merely recall the incidents as we wish. I am now speaking personally, and as it governs the folk with whom I live in this realm, this encyclopedic memory with which we are endowed is not so difficult to understand when you pause to consider your own average earthly memory. You are not continuously bothered by the incidents of the whole of your life, but they are simply there for you to recall when and where you wish, and they may arise out of the occasions of the moment. One incident will set a train of thought going in which the memory will have its share. Sometimes you cannot recall what is in your memory, but in the spirit world we can recall instantly, without any effort, and unfailingly. The subconscious mind never forgets, and consequently our own past deeds become a reproach to us, or otherwise, according to our earthly lives. The recordings upon the tablets of the real mind cannot be erased. They are there for all time, but they do not necessarily haunt us, because in those tablets are also set down the good actions, the kind thoughts, and everything of which we could justly be proud. And if they are written in larger and more ornate letters than those things we regret, we shall be so much the happier. Of course, when we are in the spirit world, our memories are persistently retentive. When we follow a course of study in any subject whatsoever, we shall find that we learn easily and quickly, because we are freed from the limitations that the physical body imposes upon the mind. If we are acquiring knowledge, we shall retain that knowledge without fail. If we are following some pursuit where dexterity of the hands is required, we shall find that our spirit bodies respond to the impulses of our minds immediately and exactly. To learn to paint a picture, or to play upon a musical instrument, to mention 2 familiar mundane activities, are tasks which can be performed in a fraction of the time that they would take when we are incarnate. In learning to lay out a spirit garden, for example, or to build a house, we shall find that the requisite knowledge is gained with equal ease and speed, insofar as our intelligence will allow, for we are not endowed with keen intellects the moment we shake off the physical body. If that were the case, these realms would be inhabited by supermen and superwomen, and we are very far from that. But our intelligence can be increased. That is part of our progression, for progression is not only of a spiritual nature. Our minds have unlimited resources for intellectual expansion and improvement, however backward we may be when we come into the spirit world. And our intellectual progression will advance surely and steadily, according to our wish for it to do so, under the learned and able masters of all branches of knowledge and learning. And throughout our studies, we shall be assisted by our unfailingly retentive memories. There will be no forgetting.
Today, we know more about the life in the next realm of our eternal lives than humanity has ever known. We have many thousands of valid, verified descriptions by people living there about what life is like in the afterlife. Subscribe to this channel to hear more about the life we will all enter after we leave this earth life. Today, we have many thousands of descriptions of life in the world we will all enter after leaving Earth, called by some Summerland, and by others heaven. All people are destined to go to this realm, although some may be delayed because of a stunted state of mind that they will grow out of over time. I present statements by reliable sources about what life in heaven is like. I present descriptions of what people do for fun or recreation in the afterlife. Anthony Borgia was a medium in the 20th century. He wrote several books with the communications he received from people living in the life after this life. His books are the most complete descriptions of life in the world we will all enter when we have completed our brief tenure on Earth. His communications came from a man named Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, whom Borgia came to know 5 years before his transition into the next life. In this excerpt from Borgia's book, Life in the World Unseen, Borgia recounts what his guide to the afterlife, Robert Hugh Benson, told him about what people do for fun in the afterlife.
The most noticeable difference between our two worlds in this matter of recreations is created by our respective requirements. We have no need here to take bodily exercise, vigorous or otherwise, nor do we need to go out into the fresh air. Our spirit bodies are always in perfect condition. We suffer no disorders of any kind, and the air, which cannot be other than fresh, penetrates into every corner of our homes and buildings, where it fully retains its purity. It would be impossible for it to become vitiated or contaminated in any way. It is to be expected, then, that our recreations should be more upon the mental plane than upon the physical. As most of the outdoor games of the earth world involve the use of a ball, it will be appreciated that here, where the law of gravity operates under different conditions from yours, anything in the nature of propelling a ball by striking it would lead quite hopeless results. I am speaking now of games of a competitive nature. On the earth plane, skill in games is acquired by the master of the mind over the muscles of the body, when once the latter has been brought to a healthy condition. But here we are always in a healthy condition, and our muscles are always under the complete and absolute control of our minds. Efficiency is quickly gained, whether it is in playing upon a musical instrument, painting a picture, or in any other pursuit that requires the use of the limbs. It will be seen, therefore, that most of the usual games would lose their point here, and it must be remembered that indoors or outdoors are precisely one to us here. We have no changes of weather during recurrent seasons. The great central sun is forever shining. It is never anything but delightfully warm. We never feel the necessity for a brisk walk to set our blood circulating the better. Our homes and our houses are not necessities, but additions to an already enjoyable life. You will find many people here who do not possess a home. They do not want one, they will tell you, for the sun is perpetually shining and the temperature is perpetually warm. They are never ill or hungry or in want of any kind, and the whole beautiful realm is theirs to wander in. It must also be remembered that viewpoints change very much when one comes to live here. What we deemed so very important when we were incarnate, we find is not nearly so important when we arrive in the spirit world, and many of our erstwhile earthly games seem rather tame and trivial beside our greatly increased powers in the spirit world. The fact that we can move ourselves through space instantaneously is enough to make the greatest earthly athletic skill recede into insignificance, and our mundane sports and games are in a similar case. Our recreations are more of the mind, and we never feel that we must expend a superfluity of physical energy upon some strenuous action, for our energy is at a constant level according to our individual requirements. We find that we have so much to learn, and learning is in itself such pleasure that we do not need the number or variety of recreations that you do. We have plenty of music to listen to. There are such wonders in these lands that we want to know all about. There is so much congenial work to be done that there is no cause to be cast down at the prospect of there being few of the earthly sports and pastimes in the spirit world. There is such a superabundant supply of vastly more entertaining things to be seen and done here, besides which a great deal of the earthly recreations appear sheer trivialities.
That dog
Today
is so
we
funny.
know more about what life in the next realm of our eternal lives is like than humankind has ever known. We have many thousands of valid, verified descriptions by people living there.